I am.
And you can go ahead and start sharing whenever you're ready.
Okay. First, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. All right. So Matt helped me test this last night. I'm trying something that's a little different. I'm in the meeting twice on two different computers.
Okay.
And one and then my video on the other. So hopefully this is going to work. So tonight we're going to go over the second section on operating practices. And if anyone who's using this book will find most of these questions in the second chapter, but there's actually quite a few that come from the chapter 8 as well. Almost half of the questions come from chapter 8. And then there's a few of them from chapter 10 as well. So I'm sure everybody's figured this out by now, but if you look at the answer key in the back, they give you the page, the chapter and the page number where the answer to that question lies. So we'll just run through this quickly. I put these in the first slide for anybody that might want a copy of this down the road. This gives you the sections to the sub-element and how many questions are in each section. We've got 61 total questions, and of the 61 that we're going to go over tonight, there'll be 5 questions on the test, one from each section. All right. First, the section A will cover amateur satellites, orbital wear, and satellite operations. So let's get started with question 1. What is the direction of an ascending pass for an amateur satellite? The answer is from south to north, and that makes sense if you look at a map. When you ascend or go up, you're going from south to north. On some of these questions, if I come up with a memory device that helps me, I put it at the bottom. Y'all can ignore them, or if they're helpful to you, use them. Question 2, which of the following occurs when a satellite is using an inverted linear transponder? This is an all of these choices are correct. And this is a good time for me to just mention that in the presentation, I'm only going to show you the correct answer. A number of you have mentioned that that's has been a pretty well proven study technique in the past, so that the correct answer just kind of jumps off the page at you. So I'll do that with the exception of the questions where the answer is all of these are correct, because I didn't want to just put that on the screen. So I'll show you all the questions when that's the answer. How is the signal inverted by an inverting linear transponder? The signal is passed through a mixer, and the difference rather than the sum is transmitted. And I think of this one because I associate inverted with opposite. And this is the only answer of the 4 where there's some kind of opposites involved, difference in sum. What is meant by the term mode as applied to an amateur radio satellite? The satellite's uplink and downlink frequency bands. What do the letters in a satellite's mode designator specify? And that's the uplink and downlink frequency ranges. I think the first letter is the uplink and second letter is the downlink band range. What are Keplerian elements? Parameters that define the orbit of a satellite. All right, I'm going to show y'all my memory device for this, but you're not allowed to laugh at me. Klingon Patrol. K and P, A, the answer, there's no other word in any of the other answers that begins with PA. So if you remember Klingon Patrol, you're in good shape. All right, which of the following types of signals can be relayed through a linear transponder? And again, this is all of these choices are correct. Why should effective radiated power to a satellite that uses a linear transponder be limited? And knowing how the satellite's power work, this one kind of makes sense to avoid reducing the downlink power to all the other users on the satellite. What do the terms L-band and S-band specify regarding satellite communications? The answer is 23 centimeters and 13 centimeters bands. And I almost just treated it as a memory question. But I noticed, and again, this works for me, the 1 from 13 is kind of like an L, and the 2 from 23 is sort of like a lowercase, a backwards S. So L and S I can associate with these 2 digits. What type of satellite appears to stay in one position in the sky, geostationary? That's probably the easiest question of the 61. What type of antenna can be used to minimize the effects of spin modulation and Faraday rotation? A circularly polarized antenna, and the obvious device here is to associate spin with circular. What is the purpose of digital store and forward functions of an amateur radio satellite? And the book does a pretty good job of explaining this: to store digital messages in the satellite for later download by other stations. The satellite can't always see when it receives a message, can't see who it's intended for, so it's got to store it until it can. And store and store. Which of the following techniques is normally used by low Earth orbiting digital satellites to relay messages around the world? And it's the same thing, store and forward. So that's the first section. We're 20% done. Anybody want to say anything about any of those before we move forward? Okay, let's do television practice. This is section B. Fast scan and slow scan television standards and techniques. How many times? Oh, so a lot of these there's not really unless you truly understand the foundation of the question, it's just going to be memorizing them. How many times per second new frame transmitted in fast scan television system? 30 frames per second, 30 hertz. How many horizontal lines make up a fast scan NTSC television frame? 525. How is an interlaced scanning pattern generated in a fast scan television system? By scanning odd numbered lines in one field and even numbered lines in the next. How is color information sent in analog slow scan TV? Color lines are sent sequentially. Which of the following describes the use of vestigial sideband in analog fast scan TV transmissions? Vestigial sideband reduces bandwidth while allowing for simple video detector circuitry. And you can kind of remember this one by the word, the root of the word vestigial is vestige, and vestige is sort of a leftover. And so you've got the half of the sideband over here fully, and then a little bit a leftover of one on the other side. What is vestigial sideband modulation? There you go, amplitude modulation, in which one complete sideband and a portion of the other are transmitted. What is the name of the signal component that carries color information in NTSC video? And that's chroma. What technique allows commercial analog TV receivers to be used for fast scan TV operations on the 70 centimeter band? transmitting on channels shared with cable TV. And that sort of makes sense if you're using commercial receivers. What hardware other than a receiver with single sideband capability and a suitable computer is needed to decode slow scan TV using digital radio mondial, DRM? And the answer is nothing. No other hardware is needed. What aspect of an analog slow scan television signal encodes the brightness of the picture? And it's going to be tone frequency. There's going to be another question in just a minute that has a similar answer. And I'll say something about that when we get to it. What is the function of the vertical interval signaling code sent as part of an SSTV transmission? To identify the SSTV mode being used. What signals SSTV receiving software to begin a new picture line? Here's the other question with tone frequencies. Specific tone frequencies is the answer. There's two questions in what I'm covering tonight where one of the possible answer is tone frequencies or has tone the answer. All right, so that ends subpart B.
George,
Yeah, Mike.
the EB questions, are they in chapter 2 or they're in another chapter of the ARR?
The two subsection 2 are many of them are going to be found in chapter 10 of this book. Chapter 10 of this book.
Yeah, that's the one I've got. And I was looking in 2 and I couldn't find the questions that started with the E2B.
I'm sorry, I just told you, Mike, I just told you chapter 10. Yeah, I believe it's chapter 8.
Okay.
I think there are 3 questions that come from chapter 10, and the rest come from 2 and 8, and the ones on the TV stuff are all going to be in chapter 8.
Okay. So what we're looking at now is chapter 8 then.
A portion of chapter 8. Chapter 8 is like 26 pages, I think. You don't have to read the whole thing. It will actually show you in each section of that chapter the questions that are addressed in that paragraph or little blurb. So you can kind of scan through chapter 8 and read the salient portions.
But do they list the questions as E8B and not E2B?
No, sir. They're the question itself is still going to be listed as let me move back a slide. See what I have up here at the top of the slide?
Yes.
That's how it's going to be listed in the book, in the keying in the book.
Wait, say that again?
Okay, so when you're reading chapter 8, if you get to a sentence that answers a question from this section, it's going to be identified as, for instance, E2B, whatever, the sequence number.
Okay.
Let's take 1 second just to make sure that let's go to Mike, go to page 8-12.
Okay. Okay, I got 8-12.
Right. You see in the middle of the page where it says HF packet?
Yes.
Okay, those 2 questions right below are from what we're covering tonight, and they're identified as E2, E6, and E2, E13, even though it's in chapter 8.
Oh boy, that makes it even more easier.
Clear as
Okay.
mud?
Clear as mud. Thank you.
All right.
It's back to that subject deal and not necessarily the paging or the chaptering.
That's right. And the B subsection is the one that's most affected by the back and forth through the book.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. Do subsection C. This is on contesting, DX operating, remote operating, and some things associated with contesting and RF network connected systems. Question 1, what indicator is required to be used by US licensed operators when operating a station via remote control and the remote transmitter is located in the United States? Oops. Nothing. No additional indicator is required. Which of the following best describes the term self-spotting in connection with HF contest operating? The often prohibited practice of posting one's own call sign and frequency on a spotting network. From which of the following bands is amateur radio contesting generally excluded? And that's a 30-meter band. That makes sense if you look at the band chart, and 30 meters is restricted to teletype of data, and there's really no phone transmissions on there anyway. Which of the following frequencies are sometimes used for amateur radio mesh networks? Frequencies shared with various unlicensed wireless data services. And that kind of makes sense because you're using a lot of times commercial hardware to accomplish that anyway. What is the function of a DX QSL manager? To handle the receiving during a VHF UHF contest, in which band segment would you expect to find the highest level of single sideband or CW activity? In the weak signal segment of the band with most of the activity near the calling frequency. What is the Cabrillo format? Standard for submission of electronic contest logs. I'm assuming that that's a Spanish pronunciation on that. I don't know. Maybe it's Cabrillo, but I've always said Cabrillo. Which of the following contacts may be confirmed through the US QSL Bureau system? And that's contacts between a US station and a non-US station. What type of equipment is commonly used to implement an amateur radio mesh network? That's what I was talking about a minute ago. A wireless router running custom firmware. So, off-the-shelf hardware. Why might a DX station state that they are listening on another frequency? Here's another one of all of these are correct answers. And I'm going to have a memory device on these a little bit later on in the presentation, but I'm going to hold that for now. How should you generally identify your station when attempting to contact a DX station during a contest or in a pileup? Send your full call sign once or twice. Of course, if it's in a pileup, you don't want to rattle on forever. What technique do individual nodes use to form a mesh network? Discovery and link establishment protocols. That's the end of C. Anything on that? Only got 2 more to go. All right, let's do section D. VHF and UHF digital modes and procedures, APRS, EME procedures, and meteor scatter procedures. Which of the following digital modes is designed for meteor scatter communications? And I didn't put the right animation on my memory device, but the answer is MSK 144. You've already seen the MS meteor scatter. Makes it easy. Which of the following is a good technique for making meteor scatter contacts? Again, another one of these, all of these choices are correct. Which of the following digital modes is especially useful for Earth-Moon-Earth communications? JT65. And I don't have anything really memory on there except JT65 is good for really low signal to noise ratio signals, which you're going to get in EME. What technology is used to track in real time balloons carrying amateur radio transmitters? APRS. And if you can remember that APRS uses GPS lat longs for position reporting, then it makes sense that balloons would use it, because one of the primary things you need to know about a balloon when it takes off and flies all over is where it is. And that'll come in handy in another question too. So associate APRS with GPS. What is one advantage of the JT65 mode? The ability to decode signals which have a very low signal to noise ratio, like we just said. Which of the following describes a method of establishing EME contacts? Time synchronous transmissions alternately from each station. What digital protocol is used by APRS? AX, I guess it's pronounced AX.25. And here's my main
Just AX25.
AX25. Well, I call it AX, and I'm about to show you why. If you can remember this picture of a guy throwing an axe at a balloon, and we associate balloons with APRS, you got this answer. What type of packet frame is used to transmit APRS beacon data? Unnumbered information. I don't have anything for that. What type of modulation is used for JT65 contacts? Multi-tone AFSK. How can an APRS station be used to help support a public service communications activity? An APRS station with a global positioning system unit can automatically transmit information to show a mobile station's position during the event. Now, why do I have the big exclamation point up at the top? So in all of subelement E2, there are 6 questions which have an option for all of the above are correct. Of those 6, 5 of them, the correct answer is all of the above. This is the only question where you get an all of the above option and it's not right. So if you can remember this one about the APRS deal here, then you got all the above answers are correct. And with 6 out of 61 questions, that's 10%. Chances are reasonable that one of those is going to be one of the 5 that appear. And Bob's your uncle. You got 20% of the answers correct already. D11, which of the following data are used by the APRS network to communicate station location? Latitude and longitude. GPS. Any questions on that section? All right, let's go. This is operating high frequency digital modes. Which of the following types of modulation is common for data emissions below 30 megahertz? I think all the other answers in this question they give are either nonsense or they apply to either VHF or UHF. What do the letters FEC mean as they relate to digital operation? Forward error correction. Key on the word forward here, because every answer is something error correction. So you only are going to be making a choice based on the first word. So remember the word forward. How is the timing of FT4 contacts organized? Alternating transmissions at 7.5 second intervals. What is indicated when one of the ellipses in an FSK cross ellipse display, suddenly disappears? Selective fading has occurred. Which of these digital modes does not support keyboard to keyboard operation? PACTOR. All right, I have a memory device here. Pac-Man had no keyboard, just a joystick. What is the most common data rate used for HF packet? 300 baud. There's going to be another question whose answer is 300 baud too, and we'll talk about that in a second. Which of the following is a possible reason that attempts to initiate contact with a digital station on a clear frequency are unsuccessful? All. Which of the following HF digital modes can be used to transfer binary files? Again, PACTOR. Which of the following HF digital modes uses variable length coding for bandwidth efficiency? Okay, 31. And which of these digital modes 31? Kind of goes hand in hand with it being variable length. What is the difference between direct FSK and audio FSK? Direct FSK applies the data signal to the transmitter VFO, while AFSK transmits tones via phone. Now, let me say on this one, it's the only one of the four answers that mentions direct FSK and AFSK in the response. So look for the one that actually spells out both of them. How do ALE stations establish contact? ALE constantly scans a list of frequencies, activating the radio when the designated call sign is received. And I think this is the last one. Which of these digital modes has the fastest data throughput under clear communication conditions? And it's 300 baud. There are two questions having to do with data throughput, and both of them are 300 baud, the answers. And that's it.
All right, thanks, George. Did we have any questions before we go and do some practice?
Can you put that, I guess that's the file you had for that presentation on the 2001 extra class groups IO?
No, I'm keeping it all to myself. No, yeah, I will.
I'm gonna take mine off then if you know what's going on.
Actually, I'm happy to put it up, but I'm not sure. Do you just send a message and attach it like you do a regular email?
Yes, yeah, simple as that.
All right. I'll do that tonight after we finish.
I got something. I don't know. All y'all got the AB7FO guide, correct?
Yeah, that was on the materials for download.
So I think this is what Chris decided was going to be kind of material for the class. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, it's the standard that we've used for the previous 2 extra classes, as well as using the technician version for our all the way in a day classes.
So what I'm going to say is this: when I studied for extra, I wanted to learn the material, so I read the whole ARRL book, and I watched all the Dave Kessler 80 KE0G videos, and read another book. And then at the end, somebody convinced me to read the AD7FO guide like 4 times and then take my test. The point of the AD7FO guide is that you're only seeing the correct answer. So there was, y'all keep talking about the wrong answers. You might want to try the AD7FO guide, because what happens is that literally when you take the test, the correct answer kind of levitates. Like it sounds crazy, but it jumps off the page at you, because that's what your brain associates with that question. I was kind of skeptical, but it worked. I don't know if anybody else in the class has used it, but it literally like jumps off the page. So the whole thing is this: is that you're trying to not associate the negative questions or the negative answers or the distractors. It's you're trying to key in totally on correct answers, so that when you come time for the test, that's what you're going to recognize, and the rest of it's just a blur. So I don't know, just kind of putting that out there. Y'all might want to start concentrating on that guide. I just think it is a good method for learning. I don't know if anybody else that has taken it has any input, but that's what I got to say.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And Brian, thanks for saying that. The ARRL guide is very valuable. I bought one when I was studying for extra, but I found that the 87FO guide turned out to be a lot more useful for actually just passing the exam. The ARRL guide is great if you're, concentrating on learning the material, and I'm not going to say don't use it because Dave Kessler's videos follow it, but we need to remember that the purpose of us getting together is to pass the exam. So I would definitely emphasize using the 87FO guide for that quick, you learn the question, you learn the answer. You don't learn anything else that's unnecessary. And like Brian said, if you've gone over it several times, the answers just kind of jump out at you when you're taking the exam. So highly recommend that, is your primary study aid.
I'm sorry, Don, is that put on the groups, the 2001 extra class group IO section there?
Mike, you should have gotten an email from Google Drive saying that I had shared a folder with you. That yeah, it is in there. It's like a 65 megabyte PDF file.
Is it a mail you sent it to me, or how do you? I don't know how to use Google at all. That's why I'm always using all the Yahoo and.
Chris, can you send that out again?
I'll send it as just a PDF, and they can open that up.
Yeah, let me double check to make sure that Mike is on here, but I'm pretty sure he is.
You want me to just send it as just the PDF, so they don't have to go into files and all that? Like they can just open it from the email?
We can, but we start butting up against the maximum size of stuff that we can store in Groups IO. Mike, what I'll do is I'll email a link to you directly.
Okay.
Actually,
Thank you very much.
I'm going to drop a copy of that link into chat. And if you click on that, that should open in a web browser, and it's going to have a bunch of different documents in there. And that's the stuff that you can use. We actually have 3 different copies of the 87FO guide. One of them is a standard portrait mode PDF file. The second one is it strips all the extras and it's just the questions and answers, but it's formatted for a single, for a single screen. So the questions are spaced out correctly. There's 2 copies of that. One of them is a PDF. The other one is a PowerPoint. So the file extension is PPTX. And any of those can be used. The PowerPoint is great if you're going to be presenting on that section, because it includes all those explanations of why that answer is correct. So you're going to get, enough of why that's correct. So it should be obvious when you see it on the exam, but it's not going to bog down in theory and things like that.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah. Hey, Jane.
can you send me a copy of that also? That
If you check in the chat in Zoom, you should be able to access it through that link that I dropped in there.
Okay,
At the bottom of the Zoom window, there's a little button that says chat. If you click
Right.
on that, you should see the link.
okay.
Let me know if you don't, and I can just send it directly to your email.
Okay, yes, there.
Okay, good deal. All right, let's do some practice questions. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, everybody's seeing that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Let's start with the first section. So what is the direction of an ascending path for an amateur satellite?
B. Beta.
Correct. Which of the following occurs when a satellite is using an inverting linear transponder?
B. Beta.
Correct. All of those are correct. How is a signal inverted by an inverting linear transponder?
This is all B. B.
Yeah,
Everything's B.
yeah, it's going through the mixer and it's using the difference instead of the sum, and that will invert the signal. So what is meant by the term mode is applied to an amateur radio satellite?
A.
Yeah, the uplink and downlink frequencies or frequency bands. What do the letters in a satellite's mode designator signify? That's going to be C.
Yep.
And yeah, Brian, you can probably tell us a little bit about that. I mean, because of the different satellites that you've worked.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to get used to the meaning of it, and it's like if it's UV, okay, then the uplink is UHF and the downlink is VHF. VU uplink would be VHF and the downlink would be UHF, because all the satellites transmit and receive on different bands. So it's strictly telling you what you need to what band the uplink and the downlink is going to be on. It's that simple.
Brian, is a majority of satellites, UV or VU, or is it a fairly even mix?
Right now they have more linear satellites up than FM satellites. A lot of the FM satellites have kind of bit the dust, and then I think the last two that AMSAT tried to put up didn't work. They do have an L-band satellite that's up there, so that would be L, and then that would be the L-band is the uplink, and then the down is UHF.
Okay. All right. So what are the Keplerian elements?
A alpha.
Yeah, that's going to be alpha. These are the numbers that I think you can go onto AMSAT's website and you can download a copy of them. These change over time. So I know if you use some of the satellite predicting software, you need to refresh the Keplerian elements periodically. And that helps correct for any kind of anomalies over time that develop. Which of the following types of signals can be relayed through a linear transponder?
B.
Yeah, another all of the above. Why should effective radiated power to a satellite that uses a linear transponder be limited?
A alpha.
Yeah, you have to remember for a linear transponder, everyone shares, that frequency range. And if you happen to be the loudest out there, you're going to drown out your neighbors. And it's just poor practice.
Some of the satellites will actually what they call flip if people use too much power. So it'll flip it into a different mode, and then nobody can work the satellite. So FM this doesn't really apply to FM because guys run as much power as they can because they're just trying to be the biggest signal picked up by the satellite. Whereas with the linears, the power is affected because what you put in is what's coming out, and it's a shared power. So if too many people run too much power, like I said, the satellites can actually shut off.
What is a normal power level that you would use for a linear transponder?
5 watts and under usually.
So it doesn't take a whole lot. No, and one of the reasons with FM that you do see that the loudest guy wins is a thing that we'll talk about a little bit later called capture effect, and that's actually one of the reasons why aviation still uses AM, because if it was using FM, you have to deal with capture effect, and that loudest transmitter is going to win out over other other planes, and that could cause a safety issue. So what do the terms L-band and S-band specify regarding satellite communications?
Yep. C Charlie.
Yeah, C Charlie. What type of satellite appears to stay in one position in the sky?
C.
They have one up in Europe now that's geostationary. So it's kind of cheating. It's just a big repeater way up there in the sky that doesn't move. Whereas the satellites over North America all orbit, so you have to track them through the sky. Whereas the geostationary, it's like you just know where it's at and you're going to get into it.
Yeah, no tracking whatsoever, right?
No, I mean, like I said, once you know where it's at, that's pretty much it. It's basically just a really, really high repeater that doesn't move.
All right. So what type of antenna can be used to minimize the effect of spin modulation and Faraday rotation?
D. Delta.
Yeah, that's going to be D, delta. a circularly polarized antenna. What is the purpose of the digital store and forward functions on an amateur radio satellite?
C.
Yeah, that's going to be C. Which of the following techniques is normally used by low Earth orbiting digital satellites to relay messages around the world?
D.
So
D.
Delta? Yeah, it's going to be Delta. All right. Not bad.
All right.
Do we have any questions? All right, let's hit the next section. How many times per second is a new frame transmitted in a fast scan NTSC television system?
C.
Yeah, C, 30 times a second. How many horizontal lines make up a fast scan NTSC television frame?
D.
That's going to be D. How is an interlace scanning pattern generated in a fast scan NTSC television system?
A.
Yeah, it's gonna skip lines and then come back and fill them in the next time. How is color information sent in analog SSTV?
D, Charlie.
C.
C? Yeah, they're sent sequentially. Which of the following describes the use of a vestigial sideband in analog fast scan TV transmissions?
D.
D, Delta. What is vestigial sideband modulation? So we're going to have one complete sideband and just a portion of the other.
Go with A.
What is the name of the signal component that carries color information in NTSC video?
C.
Yeah, color chroma. What technique allows commercial analog TV receivers to be used for fast scan TV operations on the 70 centimeter band?
D.
Yeah, this is going to be Delta. If we use channels that are shared with cable TV, which is basically the old UHF TV band. What hardware other than a receiver with single sideband capability and a suitable computer is needed to decode SSTV using digital radio Mondale or DRM?
D. I mean, B.
B, yeah, no extra hardware is needed. What aspect of analog slow scan television signal encodes the brightness of the picture?
A.
Shout it out.
I think it's A.
It's A, alpha.
I know it's one of the frequency ones.
Alpha, yeah, tone frequency. What is the function of the vertical interval signaling code sent as part of the slow scan television transmission?
D, Bravo.
Yeah, that's going to help identify the mode that's being used. You know, that way the software can read that and it knows which mode to start using to decode. What signals SSTV receiving software to begin a new picture line?
C, Charlie.
Yeah, they're going to have specific tone frequencies. Not bad. Okay, what indicator is required to be used by US licensed operators when operating a station via remote control and the remote transmitter is located in the US?
D.
Yeah, it's going to be D. No additional indicator is required as long as you're in the US. Which of the following best describes the term self-spotting in connection to HF contest operating?
B, Bravo.
Yeah, that's going to be B, Bravo. It's generally frowned upon or prohibited. But if you're going to go operate and activate a park, it's very much encouraged because people are looking to make those contacts. In a contest, it's considered poor sportsmanship. From which of the following bands is amateur radio contesting generally excluded? Anyone?
C.
30 meters.
30 meters.
C.
Yeah, 30 meters is one of what we call the WARC bands. That's 30 meters, 17 meters, and 12 meters. They're generally excluded from contesting. So if you get onto the radio during a contest weekend, that's where you want to hang out because you're not going to have to deal with a lot of the contesters. Which of the following frequencies are sometimes used for amateur radio mesh networks?
D. Delta.
Yeah, Delta. What is the function of a DX QSL manager?
C.
Yeah, that's going to be for QSL cards. During a VHF UHF contest, in which band segment would you expect to find the highest level of single sideband or CW activity?
C.
Yeah, that's going to be C, the weak signal segment. What is the Cabrillo format?
A.
Yeah, that's going to be A. Most contests want the logs submitted in Cabrillo format, and most contest loggers have the ability to generate that submission for you. Which of the following contacts may be confirmed through a US QSL bureau system?
C.
Yeah, that's going to be C. What type of equipment is commonly used to implement an amateur radio mesh network?
C.
Yeah, that's going to be C. The old Linksys wireless routers, WRT54Gs, are very popular still for doing amateur radio mesh networks. Why might a DX station state that they are listening on another frequency?
A.
Yeah, this is going to be A, all of the above. How should you generally identify your station when attempting to contact the DX station during a contest or in a pileup?
A.
Yeah, that's going to be A. Send your full call sign. What technique do individual nodes use to form a mesh network?
D, Charlie.
Yeah,
C.
C. All right, one left.
Two left.
Two left. Which of the following digital modes is designated for meteor scatter communications? Okay, easy way to remember this one is MS, meteor scatter.
D.
Which of the following is a good technique for making meteor scatter contacts? So again, this is going to be
B.
all of the above. Which of the following digital modes is especially useful for EME communications?
Is it D?
D, Delta.
D, delta. The JT65 can be decoded at incredibly low levels. What technology is used to track in real time balloons carrying amateur radio transmitters?
C.
Yeah, that's going to be C, APRS. What is one advantage of the JT65 mode? And I just gave you that answer. It's going to be B. Which of the following describes a method of establishing EME contacts?
C, Charlie.
Yeah, that's going to be C. What digital protocol is used by APRS? That's going to be AX25. What type of packet frame is used to transmit APRS beacon data?
A, Alpha.
That's correct. Unnumbered information. What type of modulation is used for JT65 contacts?
Is it C?
C, Charlie.
Yeah,
Yep, C.
C. How can an APRS station be used to help support a public service communications activity?
Charlie.
C.
Yeah, that's going to be C. Which of the following data are used by the APRS network to communicate station position?
Alpha.
Yeah, latitude and longitude. Okay. One last section. Which of the following types of modulation is common for data emissions below 30 megahertz?
Delta.
It's going to be delta. Frequency shift keying. What do the letters FEC mean as they relate to digital operations?
Alpha.
Yeah, forward error correction. How is the timing of FT4 contacts organized?
Alpha.
Yeah, 7.5 second intervals. What is indicated when one of the ellipses of an FSK crossed ellipse display suddenly disappears?
A.
Yeah, we're going to have selective fading. Which of these digital modes does not support keyboard to keyboard operation?
Backdoor C.
Yeah, Pactor. What is the most common data rate used for HF packet?
Alpha.
A.
Yeah, 300 baud. Which of the following is a possible reason that attempts to initiate contact with the digital station on a clear frequency are unsuccessful?
Alpha.
Yeah, all the above. Which of the following HF digital modes can be used to transfer binary files?
Charlie.
B. C.
C, Pactor. Which of the following HF digital modes uses variable length coding for bandwidth efficiency?
D.
Yeah, D, PSK 31. Which of these digital modes has the narrowest bandwidth?
Mm.
Yeah, PSK 31. I believe it's the neighborhood of 30 hertz that it uses up. What is the difference between direct FSK and audio FSK?
Alpha. Alpha.
A.
Yeah. How do AL stations establish contact?
Bravo.
Yeah, that's going to be
Yeah,
Bravo.
B.
Yeah, AL, it's short for automatic link establishment. It's used very much by the military to ensure, communications between two stations. Which of these digital modes has the fastest data throughput under clear communication conditions?
Mm.
It's going to be 300 baud packet. All right, that is the second section. Did anybody have any questions? Yeah, I think this section was fairly self-explanatory, a lot like, the last one. There's, a fair amount of just rote memorization, but, as we had mentioned, as you go through, if you use the 87FO guide, you see the questions, you see the correct answers. It's going to make it easier when you actually go to take that exam. So I think we can go ahead and call it for this evening. I'll stop recording and we will gather again next week. Mike, I believe you're up next. So if you have any questions, let me know. We'll get you whatever help you need. And